Something happened in the skies above the Middle East that the Pentagon does not want you to calculate. Israel's F-35s, the most expensive combat aircraft ever built, flew into an active war zone and came back without hitting a single intended target. Not because they were shot down, not because enemy fighters intercepted them, because Iran reached into their navigation computers from hundreds of kilometers away and fed them lies. And every bomb those aircraft dropped followed those lies with perfect precision straight into empty ground. This is not analysis from a think tank. This is what the mission debrief data shows. And right now, the governments in Tel Aviv and Washington are working hard to make sure that story never reaches you in full. If you want the analysis that mainstream coverage will not give you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel stays independent for one reason only: you. The F-35 is not just an aircraft. It is the physical embodiment of 30 years of American military investment. The United States spent over $400 billion developing it. Israel paid over $3 billion for its fleet alone. Every ally that bought this aircraft, Japan, South Korea, Poland, the UAE, bought it on one promise. That promise was dominance. The ability to fly anywhere, strike anything, and return home before the enemy even understood what happened. That promise just broke over Iranian airspace. To understand how Iran broke it, you need to understand one thing about the F-35 that Lockheed Martin's marketing never put in the brochure. Beneath all the stealth coding, all the sensor fusion, all the fifth-generation avionics, this aircraft navigates targets and delivers weapons using GPS. The global positioning system is not a feature on the F-35. It is the spine of everything the aircraft does. Navigation routes run on GPS. Weapons guidance runs on GPS. Formation coordination runs on GPS. Strike corridors are calculated on GPS. Pull GPS out and you do not have a degraded F-35. You have a $100 million aircraft whose pilot cannot fully trust where he is or where his weapons are going. Iran found the spine and Iran snapped it. The operation Iran executed was not jamming. Jamming is simple. Flood the GPS frequency with noise, alert the aircraft systems, force emergency protocols. Pilots know immediately something is wrong. Iran did something far more dangerous. Iran spoofed. Spoofing means injecting false GPS signals into the receiver with enough precision that the aircraft registers nothing abnormal. Every system aboard continues operating normally. Navigation suite reads clean. Weapons computers calculate cleanly. The pilot sees no warning, no alarm, no indication of any problem. What he does not know is that every coordinate his aircraft is processing has been silently replaced with a carefully constructed lie. Iranian electronic warfare teams deployed a distributed network of mobile spoofing transmitters across western Iran, eastern Syria, and the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. These platforms created an overlapping zone of corrupted GPS coverage extending deep into the operational airspace, where Israeli F-35s were conducting strike missions. The network did not need to destroy anything. It only needed to move the truth by a few hundred meters consistently, invisibly, and at scale. The results were immediate and catastrophic. Precision-guided munitions released by F-35s during the initial strike wave tracked their false coordinates with perfect fidelity and struck empty terrain. Mission commanders watching weapon impact data in real time understood within minutes that they were facing a GPS compromise of a scale and sophistication that Israeli air doctrine had never planned for. By the time abort orders reached the active strike packages, multiple sorties had already released ordnance. The weapons performed exactly as designed. They just destroyed the wrong ground. Then Iran activated the second phase, broadband GPS jamming across the same geographic zone, now openly alerting Israeli systems to signal denial, forcing Israeli Air Command into an immediate choice: continue operations using degraded inertial navigation with sharply reduced accuracy, or stand down and absorb the cost. The answer from Israeli command was stand down. F-35 sorties were curtailed. Strike missions were postponed. The aircraft that the IDF has treated as the guarantor of its regional air dominance was pulled back from the operational zone where its GPS dependency made it a liability rather than an asset. Israel's Air Force did not lose aircraft that night. It lost something harder to replace. It lost certainty. Before we go further, Amir, if this is reaching you in full clarity and you want more analysis like this, share this video right now. Someone in your network needs to see this. Understanding how Iran built this capability means confronting a decade of deliberate Western intelligence failure. The assumption held firmly across American, Israeli, and European threat assessments was simple and comfortable. A nation under comprehensive sanctions, denied Western microelectronics, cut off from international defense supply chains, cannot develop electronic warfare systems that threaten fifth-generation aircraft. That assumption had one catastrophic flaw. It confused economic pressure with intellectual limitation. Iran was poor in dollars. It was not poor in engineers. The foundation of Iran's GPS denial program was handed to them in 2011. That year, Iranian forces captured an American RQ-70 Sentinel reconnaissance drone nearly intact. The United States initially claimed it malfunctioned. The truth was simpler and more alarming. Iranian engineers had executed a GPS spoofing attack that convinced the drone's navigation system it was approaching its home base in Afghanistan. It landed itself gently inside Iranian territory while American operators watched the telemetry and could not understand what was happening. That single aircraft gave Iranian reverse engineering teams direct access to American GPS receiver architecture. The signal processing logic, the authentication thresholds, the exact fidelity levels that military GPS systems use to decide whether an incoming signal is real. What Iranian engineers learned from that drone became the blueprint for everything that followed. Over the next decade, the IRGC's Electronic Warfare Command built what defense analysts now describe as a layered GPS denial architecture. Mobile, distributed, redundant, and specifically engineered against the authentication protocols used in American and Israeli military systems. Iran navigated this entire operation using Russian GLONASS and Chinese BU satellite positioning. While Israeli F-35s flew through a bubble of false coordinates, Iranian targeting and positioning systems operated with full accuracy. The asymmetry on an active battlefield is almost impossible to state calmly. Iran was seeing clearly while Israel was flying blind. And Iran had built that asymmetry deliberately, patiently, and over years specifically because it understood that the only way to fight the most expensive air force on Earth was to attack what that air force trusted most. The immediate consequences for Israel's military position are severe and not temporary. Israel's entire warfighting doctrine is built on one foundational requirement: speed. A small nation with no strategic depth, a concentrated civilian population, and adversaries on multiple borders cannot fight long wars of attrition. Every conflict must end quickly, decisively, and on terms that restore deterrence before the next round begins. The instrument that makes this possible is air power. Israel's Air Force is not just a military branch. It is the mechanism by which a nation of 9 million people projects force across a region of 400 million. For that mechanism to work, Israel's aircraft must strike with confidence. When they cannot, when pilots cannot trust their navigation, when weapons cannot trust their guidance, when mission commanders cannot trust their debrief data, the entire rapid decisive warfare architecture that has protected Israel for 70 years begins to fail. Iran did not just degrade Israeli air power operationally that night. Iran attacked the doctrine that Israeli air power is built on. The political pressure this creates inside Israel is immediate and compounding. Israeli society has been conditioned by decades of IDF performance to expect precise, rapid military results. When air missions are aborted, when strike packages return without achieving objectives, when the morning news cannot report successful operations against enemy infrastructure, the Israeli War Cabinet faces public and political pressure that military degradation alone does not explain. Hezbollah's rocket campaigns from Lebanon continue without the precise Israeli air interdiction that would normally suppress them within days. Iranian-supplied precision missiles continue reaching Israeli territory. The tools Hezbollah uses are inertial, guided, and terrain-matched, specifically because Iranian weapons designers anticipated navigation warfare and built their export weapons to function inside exactly this kind of GPS-denied environment. Israel's absorbing fire from weapons that do not need GPS, while its primary response tool is grounded by an adversary that attacked its GPS. That is not a coincidence. That is a strategy Iran has been building toward for 15 years. Washington's nightmare is not the immediate tactical situation over Israeli airspace. Washington's nightmare is the question that every serious defense ministry on earth is now asking inside closed rooms. If Iran can do this, what can Russia do? What can China do? The American way of war since 1991 has been built on one foundational concept: precision. GPSG guided munitions replaced mass bombing network systems, replaced independent platforms. The F-35, the B-2, the entire family of precision-guided weapons in the American arsenal all carry one baseline assumption embedded in their design. They assume GPS works, mission planning software assumes GPS, Joint Terminal Attack Controller communications assume GPS. The integrated joint warfare architecture that makes American military power lethal across every theater assumes that the positioning data flowing through every system is trustworthy. Iran just proved that assumption is not guaranteed, not theoretically. Operationally, against the most advanced aircraft the United States has ever exported to an ally in an active combat environment with results that forced a mission stand down, Russia has been developing GPS denial capability for years. The evidence from Ukraine shows Russian electronic warfare teams routinely degrading GPS accuracy for Ukrainian drone and precision weapons operations. China's electronic warfare investment is arguably more sophisticated than Iran's and has been sustained at a scale that TAN could never match. North Korea has demonstrated GPS jamming capability that has affected civilian aviation in South Korea on multiple occasions. The answer to the question of who else can execute GPS denial operations against American forces is not reassuring. It is multiple adversaries across multiple theaters with varying but consistently growing capability. The Pentagon's response has been the institutional default: acknowledgement and classified briefing silence in public. The silence is understandable. Publicly acknowledging that Iran has developed GPS denial capability sufficient to disrupt F-35 strike operations would force every nation that purchased American fifth-generation aircraft to ask what exactly they paid for. Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Poland, nations whose defense planning depends on F-35 performance in a GPS-contested environment would begin asking questions that American defense contractors are not prepared to answer. The international market for American military technology would face consequences that extend well beyond this conflict. The Gulf states are already recalculating. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar have spent decades building military capacity around American platforms and American technological guarantees. The Iranian demonstration is forcing a reassessment in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi of whether those investments provide the security that was implicit in the procurement decisions. Back-channel communications between Gulf capitals and Thrawn that have been running at low intensity for months are reportedly intensifying. Gulf leaders are watching a regional power shift that Iran appears to be winning, not through superior aircraft or superior missiles, but through superior understanding of where the modern battlefield is actually being fought. The electromagnetic spectrum is that battlefield now. Not the sky, not the sea, the spectrum. Whoever controls it, whoever can use it freely while denying it to an adversary, holds the initiative in any modern conflict. Iran just demonstrated that control of the spectrum is not the exclusive property of nations with large defense budgets and advanced manufacturing bases. It requires deep technical knowledge, sophisticated software engineering, and the strategic patience to develop capability across years of iterative testing. All of these are things a sanctioned nation with a strong engineering culture and a clear strategic objective can build. Iran built them. The F-35s will fly again. Emergency anti-jam receiver upgrades are being accelerated. Alternative navigation protocols using inertial systems and terrain reference positioning are being pushed to operational Israeli squadrons. Some of this will restore partial effectiveness in the near term, but partial is not full. And the Israeli Air Force now knows that Iran knows that its GPS dependency is an exploitable operational vulnerability. Every mission profile built around GPS guided precision delivery now requires reassessment. Every strike package that uses GPS waypoint navigation needs alternative protocols. This is not a revision at the margins. It is a comprehensive rethinking of how the Israeli Air Force fights. That rethinking takes months. Hezbollah is not pausing for months. What Iran wrote last night is not a footnote to this conflict. It is a manual, and it is already being read in Moscow, in Beijing, in Pyongyang, in every capital where a government is trying to understand how to defend itself against an adversary that outspends it by a factor of 10. The lesson is not complicated. Find the dependency. Attack the dependency. The most expensive military machine in history will malfunction. The F-35 that flew blind above the Middle East is a symbol of something larger than one aborted mission. It is a signal that the 30-year assumption of unchallenged Western technological dominance in the aerial domain is no longer something adversaries accept as fixed. They are challenging it. They are challenging it in the electromagnetic spectrum where the cost of entry is a fraction of the cost of the platforms being targeted. And one of them just proved in live operational conditions that the challenge works. The age of GPS-dependent air superiority did not end with a dogfight. It ended in silence, in the gap between where an F-35 thought it was and where it actually was. Iran put that gap there. And closing it will take far longer than any government involved is prepared to admit publicly. If this analysis gave you something that the official narrative is working to keep out of your feed, share it right now. Hit like, subscribe if you haven't. The analysis that needs to happen about what Iran demonstrated is not happening on mainstream platforms. It is happening here. What is your read? Has Iran permanently shifted the balance of aerial warfare in this region? Or will American technical resources eventually restore Israeli air dominance? Drop your assessment in the comments. The most important conversation about modern warfare is happening right now, and it is happening below this video. Stay sharp, stay informed, question everything you are being